In the quiet town of Helena, Montana, librarian Rachel Mead lived a peaceful, measured life. She was passionate about history, particularly genealogy. After her mother passed away, Rachel submitted her DNA to a popular genealogy website, Heritage Map, hoping to discover long-lost relatives or trace her ancestral lineage back a few centuries. She got more than she bargained for. A few weeks later, Rachel was contacted by a woman named Lena Curtis, a volunteer genetic genealogist working with a nonprofit called Roots for Justice. Lena explained that Rachel's DNA was a partial match in an open law enforcement investigation, something deeply disturbing. The police were tracking down a serial killer connected to several cold cases from the 1980s and 90s. The killer had never been caught, but recent forensic advances allowed DNA from crime scenes to be analyzed and uploaded to genealogy databases. Rachel's DNA was a familial match, likely a second or third cousin to the suspect. Rachel was stunned. Her family history was unremarkable, or so she thought. The detectives and Lena asked for her help reconstructing her family tree. It turned out Rachel's great-grandfather had a second family no one ever spoke of, and one of those descendants might be the killer. The team began combing through dozens of family trees, census records, obituaries, and marriage certificates. Meanwhile, the town of Helena was unaware that one of its own might be the Pine Needle Killer, named for the way pine branches were always found at the crime scenes, tucked into the victim's hands like twisted bouquets. After months of building the family tree backward and then forward again, all clues pointed to John Jack Havers, a retired forest ranger now living alone in a cabin on the outskirts of Helena. Jack was known around town as a quiet gentleman, helpful, reserved, a frequent guest at church potlucks. DNA from a coffee cup Jack discarded was surreptitiously collected by law enforcement. It was a perfect match to the semen found on two victims in 1992 and 1994. But the most devastating discovery came later. Jack was Rachel's biological grandfather. Her mother had been adopted in the 1960s, something Rachel only vaguely knew about. The paperwork revealed the adoptive agency had sealed the records at the mother's request. Rachel's own DNA had led to identifying the killer, and unmasking a dark family secret she never could have imagined. Rachel struggled with the knowledge that her grandfather, a man she had never known, was a killer. She watched his arrest on the news with numb disbelief as townsfolk protested and neighbors gawked. Lena apologized, saying she never expected the familial link to be that close. Jack confessed to 6 murders spanning 3 decades. When asked why he did it, he said cryptically, "Some trees grow wrong. You prune them." The victims' families, long denied closure, wept in court. Rachel began receiving hate mail from people who saw her as tainted by the killer's bloodline, despite her help in catching him. Haunted by the revelation, Rachel leaned into her work, digitizing public records, speaking at seminars on ethical genealogy, and helping other families find the truth, no matter how painful. Jack Havers died of a heart attack in prison 6 months later. The media called his story the first major cold case cracked through genealogy. Rachel never visited his grave. She kept a small pine needle sealed in glass on her desk, not as a reminder of him, but of the branches she had trimmed from her family tree. Sometimes she wondered how many others were out there hiding in the roots, and how many might be found next. This is Crime Unscripted. Please like and subscribe.